Jason Casuga, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Laura. Appreciate the opportunity.
So we're talking right now the second week in June, still early June. How do things look for water supplies on the Middle Rio Grande right now?
Yeah, Laura, that's a tough question, and I wish I had better news, but it's not looking very good. As we began May, we had quite a bit of water. Spring runoff was coming down, but what I don't think folks realize is it was coming down early, which meant that it was going to end early, and we're seeing that process of the amount of native water that we have available to us in the Middle Rio Grande coming to an end. And the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District this week started, late last week started release of our San Juan Chama water to augment native flow, which is very early on when we would normally have to start doing that. So I would say the water situation, unfortunately, is looking pretty bleak.
So what can farmers expect, do you think, in the coming weeks?
So we're going to just face generally a downward trend on the amount of water that we can divert to the point where we won't divert anything else. We're going to reach a point in time where water delivery to non-Pueblo farmers will kick in, and we'll only be delivering what we call prior and paramount water to tribal communities. And short of getting rain, the amount of water that non-tribal farmers can expect is going to be very little, and in some cases none.
Mm-hmm. So MRGCD held a special meeting at the end of May, and I heard you say in that meeting multiple times that if irrigation deliveries are stopped in the coming weeks, that doesn't mean that the district has ended the irrigation season. It means that there's no water. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so oftentimes I think when we're talking in our board meetings, people get this idea that we at the MRGCD are literally turning off the faucet, if you will. And in this instance, we are not. MRGCD will be open for business, and if we have water to route and move to farmers, we will do that. The problem is we are just running out of the precious resource that we route to farmers. And so without rain, I expect maybe as early as the 15th of this month to have very little to no water to divert and to deliver to our non-Pueblo agricultural community right now. And that will stay that way until we get rain, and if we get rain. And if we get a substantial amount of rain where we can divert that and route it to farmers, we will do that. So in that sense, we are open for business. We just don't have the resource to deliver to folks.
So I'm sure that, I know that farmers in the district understand this, but I just kind of wanted to lay out for the audience, like the Rio Grande isn't necessarily like just a naturally flowing river anymore. There's a series of reservoirs and diversions, and the water moves from place to place, and different states, different entities have different water rights that can be held in different reservoirs. Where does the MRGCD store its water, and what's the status of that stored water right now?
So Laura, historically MRGC has stored its water at El Vado Dam. El Vado Dam is owned and operated by the Bureau of Reclamation, and MRGCD is the non-federal partner with Reclamation with El Vado. We pay O&M for it, but the Bureau of Reclamation manages it and does all the operations. And El Vado Dam is currently going through a rehabilitation under the Bureau of Reclamation Safety of Dam program. And so it is not available to us to store native water. And so without having the ability to store water, we truly are what we call a run-of-the-river system. We are beholden to what is produced in the upper elevations from a snowpack standpoint or from the amount of rain that we get. And we have no really ability to supplement that through native storage. One of the other things I think is worth mentioning there is that New Mexico is currently in debt under the Rio Grande Compact, which also limits our ability to store and would limit our ability to store even if El Vado was functioning. And so, yeah, we just face almost a perfect storm. Extreme drought, infrastructure that has to be fixed, and than the debt under the Rio Grande Compact affecting the Middle Valley. And it's all coming to a head at one time.
So we've seen the river in steady decline for decades, and we've seen temperatures rising for decades. It feels to me like this year shouldn't be a huge surprise to people, and yet it feels like a crisis. Do you know, like, how are farmers planning to adapt to this year?
Or I think it's different across the board. I think you have seen some of the farming community adapt and adapt previously as we had kind of signs of what was coming, drier years. But realistically, what I tell our team at the MRGCD is I don't think anybody has faced what we're facing from a management standpoint this year. Not having El Vado Dam, the extent to being in compact debt that we are, and then the conditions that we have related to the drought, right? And so I think what the drought is going to do, and I say the drought because even if we get the infrastructure fixed and we get more in compliance with our compact debt, I do think we're going to face a hydrologic reality where we're just the system is producing less water. And so I think that we have enough infrastructure on this river to not just weather it, but hopefully to thrive. But there's a lot of work to be done, both on the farming side, looking at the efficiency operation within an individual farmer's field. MRGCD is doing that same thing now as we look at our system. How can we move water more efficiently and get it to farms more efficiently? And then any type of infrastructure farmers need to invest in for drought resiliency. I know many farmers have invested in drought resiliency wells that they can supplement when the district can't make deliveries. And I think folks are going to have to take a more realistic look at that as they go forward, because I expect that we will continue to face a very difficult hydrologic reality for some time. That is not something, while I hope it's different, and my wish is that it's different, I just don't think that's what that we're seeing, and I don't think it's going to be a trend that turns around very quickly.
Are there concerns that as people can't get surface water, that they start drilling wells and using groundwater? And could we potentially kind of end up in a situation like in the lower Rio Grande where there's compact issues between Texas and New Mexico because of that groundwater pumping?
Yeah, Laura, I think that as I look down on that lower section and the implications down there and just then look at the Middle Valley, I think it's right to be concerned with pumping. And to degree, I think one of the things that we as New Mexicans will have to do is put in systems, I think, to monitor that pumping, to essentially take that bull by the horns, and because I think that's what it's going to take, because it is the same cup of water, right? I was explaining this to a different individual the other day. Imagine a cup of water with a straw in it. Surface water drinks it from the top, pumping just drinks it from the bottom. Right? And so it is the same cup, and I think we have to be mindful of that. I do think there is a right balance that we can get to, but on MRGCD side, we don't manage wells. That really comes from the Office of the State Engineer. Our game is primarily in surface water, right, from a delivery standpoint. So there is, I think, needs to be collaboration and coordination, get a better understanding of the amount of pumping that's already going on in the Middle Valley that maybe we don't know about. Which I think there is quite a bit of pumping that's going on in the Middle Valley that we don't know about, and start slowly but surely bringing that into an understanding and regulating that. But I think nothing can be off the board right now. I think the drought is going to be a great equalizer in this, and it's going to cause us to continue to look at these things and get better. And I say drought, and I mean just our hydrologic reality right now, because drought sometimes implies that it's coming and going, and right. I just don't know if that's what we're seeing. And so I think the right term is our current hydrologic reality, and that may be this way for some time.
So I don't want to scare people, but I want to underscore the seriousness of this year. So Jason, any final words about the outlook for this summer?
Yeah, and I don't know if, and it may scare folks, but that's not my intent. My intent, I think, and my job is to speak the truth and be transparent. I think people deserve to know how difficult it's going to be. And hopefully, Laura, what I'm hoping by opportunities like this and other times I've been able to talk with the media is that we can get the message out there. I still think there's a lot of folks in the Middle Valley that are not in tune from a water situation on what we're facing, not just in the Middle Valley, but in New Mexico as a whole. What we're facing, I think the community needs to understand, is not exclusive to New Mexico. If you look at the greater part of the Southwest, from a drought watch standpoint, we are either in exceptional to severe drought. That's a reality for the whole Southwest. What we're dealing with in the Middle Valley is the same, just on a different scale to what they're dealing with on the Colorado River. And so what I want to tell folks in the community is that I think there's a path forward, but I do think that the conversation on drought, how we manage our water, I think the conversations we need to have among our federal agencies and some of the overlapping authorities that limit, I think, the usefulness of infrastructure that we have has to be an important conversation going forward, because I don't know that this river needs more infrastructure. It needs to make use of the infrastructure that we have, and the more people that know about this issue, I think then can begin to influence, I think, some of these changes from authorities to laws, if laws need to be changed, and partnerships that need to be had. But that starts by getting the community informed about what we face, right? And I will say that I'm getting more and more calls now from folks that are just not even in the benefited area of the district, trying to understand what the communities that they are historically going to, like if they visit Corrales or they visit the Bosque, or they go north a little bit and like to hike along the river, right? The more folks that get involved, I think, can help turn these conversations as we deal with these infrastructure issues, these authorities, and hopefully get all of us water management agencies generally marching in the right direction.
Well, Jason, thanks so much for talking with me.
Appreciate the opportunity, Laura. Thank you very much.